Wait, what happens when the people who think they're protecting the truth are actually the ones cornered by it? Because that is the unnerving feeling hanging over General Hospital right now. One woman may be about to get hit with an ultimatum so brutal it could blow up her marriage from the inside out. Another may find herself begging for mercy in a situation where mercy has already left the room. A suspicious medical crisis could be hiding something far stranger underneath. A romance that once looked impossible may suddenly turn into a full-on declaration of love. And just when one woman believes she's about to be rescued, the man walking back into town may not be coming to save her at all. The story becomes even stranger when you realize none of these plot lines are isolated. They all seem to orbit the same dark question: what do people do when the lies they told to control the outcome start controlling them instead? I'm Anderson, and this is Soap Pulse, also Soapistry Buzz if you know us from there. If you like sharp, emotional soap deep dives with twists, fallout, and the kind of drama that actually says something, subscribe, and let's get into what may be one of the most psychologically loaded weeks Port Charles has had in a while. Because if we start anywhere, we have to start with Brook Lynn Quartermaine, and not just because the spoiler framing is explosive, but because her situation appears to capture the moral mood of the entire week. According to the official spoiler-based predictions we're working from, Brook Lynn may be about to get slapped with an ultimatum and find herself with nowhere left to turn. On the surface, that sounds like classic soap pressure. But if you slow down and really examine what's happening, this isn't just pressure. This is consequence catching up in real time. This is a woman who may have believed she could control a situation with one strategic lie, only to discover that lies in Port Charles do not sit still. They spread, they expose, and eventually they come home looking you in the eye. What makes Brook Lynn's predicament so fascinating is that it's not simply about whether she framed Willow. By the sound of it, Chase has already done the math, and he knows something is off. He recognized the stock maneuvering. He saw the setup. He confronted her. And critically, she admitted at least part of the truth. That alone shifts the emotional terrain. This is no longer just a suspicion hanging in the air between husband and wife. This is an acknowledged fracture. That matters because once the truth enters a marriage, even partially, the conversation changes. The question is no longer, did you do it? The question becomes, who are you becoming and what else are you still hiding? And that is where the ultimatum angle becomes so potent. If Chase demands that Brook Lynn undo the frame job, then he is not just asking her to fix a tactical mess, he is drawing a moral line. He is saying, in essence, if there is any future here, it cannot be built on a lie you knowingly put into motion. That is why this does not feel like ordinary soap bickering. It feels more like a controlled detonation inside a marriage that has been pretending it still has room for ambiguity. Chase may reassure Brook Lynn that he does not want to be with Willow. That point matters, and it matters a lot because it removes one easy deflection. Brook Lynn cannot frame this as jealousy or romantic confusion. If Chase isn't pining for Willow, then his reaction becomes much more dangerous to Brook Lynn. It becomes principle, and principle can be harder to negotiate than heartbreak. But the story gets deeper because according to these predictions, Brook Lynn has only confessed to half of it. The bigger hidden detail may be that she is still concealing her own connection to the driving chaos at the center of this case, the fact that she herself may be the other driver Jordan nearly hit. Even if no formal crime was committed in that moment, the emotional reality is devastating. Because if Brook Lynn framed Willow for something she knows traces back to her own actions, then the issue isn't just manipulation. It is displacement. It is taking your own danger, your own culpability, your own panic, and putting it on someone else so you can keep your hands clean. That is exactly the kind of revelation that changes how a spouse sees you, and maybe that is what makes Brook Lynn's situation feel so grim. There may be no graceful exit. If she refuses Chase, she risks losing his trust completely. If she complies, she risks exposing herself more fully. If she tries to half-fix the problem, she only deepens the suspicion. If she leans on Quartermaine power, she confirms the worst assumptions about who she has become. So when people say she may have nowhere left to turn, that doesn't sound like exaggeration. It sounds like a woman running out of narrative cover. And Chase, for his part, becomes one of the most important figures of the week because he appears poised to represent something rare in Port Charles, a demand for accountability that is not driven by revenge, lust, or family politics. He may simply want her to undo what she did. But even that simple demand raises a chain of unsettling questions. How exactly does she undo it? If the trip log was tampered with, can it be reversed quietly? Would she go back to Brick and ask for the damage to be undone? Could Chase push for a third-party review and force the truth into the open without directly detonating Brook Lynn's world? And if that happens, who gets caught in the blast radius? Because Willow is at the center of more than one storm right now, and that's where the week starts feeling less like a collection of soap beats and more like a genuine network of pressure points all feeding each other. One of the more intriguing prediction threads involves Elizabeth, Dante, Drew, Brennan, and what appears to be a medical mystery that may not be as straightforward as anybody is pretending. According to the official spoilers and the theory built around them, Elizabeth may tell Dante her suspicions about Drew and Brennan's stroke-related story. And if that happens, then viewers could be looking at one of those classic General Hospital escalations where a private doubt becomes a public investigation almost before anyone realizes what's happening. The details matter here. Elizabeth visits Willow's place. She hears Brennan claim he was exposed to a classified substance and that this exposure caused his stroke. He says he was lucky to be there when help arrived. On paper, it sounds plausible enough to buy a little time, but soaps love using the language of official secrecy as camouflage, and Liz is not the kind of character who hears something that odd and just permanently files it away. She may accept it in the moment, but acceptance is not the same thing as belief. And if she walks away with that uneasy edge the spoilers suggest, then the real story becomes what she does with that discomfort. That's where Dante enters the picture. If Liz goes to him and says, in effect, something isn't right over there, that changes the whole temperature of the week. Because suddenly, this is no longer just a household lie. It becomes potential law enforcement curiosity, potential exposure, potential collapse. And what makes the situation even more suspenseful is that the clues are still incomplete. There's no giant confession, no smoking gun, just odd behavior, inconsistent explanations, and the creeping sense that Drew may be more responsive than the people around him want outsiders to know. That kind of setup is catnip for fans because it creates a question far stronger than what happened. The real question is, who benefits from the confusion lasting a little longer? If Drew has been blinking, responding, signaling, or showing signs that he may be closer to communication than expected, then time itself becomes a dangerous commodity. The longer the truth is delayed, the more room there is for people to reposition themselves, hide things, or build a version of events that becomes harder to challenge later. And if Willow is already in legal jeopardy, already entangled in accusations, then this mystery may not simply threaten her emotionally, it may threaten her survival. That is what good soap investigations do. They make a living room conversation feel like the first crack in a much larger scandal. And while all of that is building, another emotionally charged story appears ready to unfold in a very different register. Valentin and Carly may be headed toward a mutual "I love you," and if that prediction is right, then this week could deliver one of the strangest and most revealing contrasts in all of Port Charles. Think about it. In one corner, relationships are buckling under secrets, manipulation, and moral ultimatums. In another, a couple with every reason not to work may actually be moving toward clarity, but even that apparent clarity is layered with danger, because the setup around Valentin, Carly, Anna, Jack, and Josslyn is not soft romance. It is a stress test. On Monday, Anna gets a warning, and she and Valentin are hugging. Carly is caught off guard by Jack, who warns her that trusting Valentin is always a mistake. Joss, meanwhile, appears to be meddling from the sidelines, allegedly trying to speed up a fracture between Carly and Valentin by pushing Valentin toward Anna and hoping old feelings reignite old patterns. That framework matters because it means any eventual declaration of love would not arrive in a vacuum. It would arrive under pressure, after suspicion, after interference, after a very intentional attempt to destabilize the bond. And that is why it would mean something if Valentin ends up making his feelings clear. If he tells Carly that yes, Anna matters to him, yes, he will always care about a woman he once loved, but his future is Carly, that becomes more than a romantic speech. It becomes an identity statement. It is a man choosing the present over the mythology of his past. And for Carly, a woman who has seen enough betrayal to know better than to trust grand declarations lightly, saying "I love you" back would be equally meaningful. It would signal that despite warnings, despite history, despite everybody around them trying to interpret the relationship for them, she is making a conscious decision to believe what is in front of her. Fans will inevitably split on that. Some will see it as a mature evolution, a complicated pair unexpectedly finding real emotional ground. Others will see it as a setup, a temporary high before a brutal fall, because General Hospital rarely lets happiness arrive without an invoice attached. And that split is exactly what gives the story energy. You don't need a couple to be universally loved for them to be compelling. Sometimes it's more interesting when viewers cannot stop debating whether what they're watching is stability or delusion. But while Valentin and Carly may be moving toward emotional commitment, Jordan Ashford appears to be moving toward humiliation and maybe heartbreak in a very different kind of plea. According to the predictions drawn from the official spoilers, Jordan may go to Portia and beg her to save Curtis, or more specifically, to persuade Isaiah to show mercy in a case where mercy may be the one thing nobody is willing to offer. That is such a loaded setup because it instantly turns a criminal justice storyline into a deeply personal moral test. Curtis, we're told, is stubbornly refusing a plea deal that could get him in and out in about 8 months for the brutal assault on Isaiah. Instead, he's talking about trial, he's talking strategy, he's talking about throwing Isaiah under the bus in court. And his justification, according to the information we have, is tied to the baby. He doesn't want to miss the birth. He doesn't want to lose that time. Now, from one perspective, that makes emotional sense. A parent-to-be facing prison may latch onto any argument that lets him stay connected to the future he still wants. But from another perspective, and it's a perspective many viewers are likely to share, that reasoning comes awfully late. If the baby was truly the central concern, then why take actions that make incarceration more likely in the first place? That contradiction is what makes Jordan's predicted visit to Portia feel so desperate. She may already know Curtis is sabotaging himself. She may know that his refusal to show remorse makes the situation harder, not easier. She may know that asking Portia to intervene with Isaiah is a long shot, but desperation has its own logic. People beg when they run out of leverage, and if the spoilers are right that Jordan strikes out, then that suggests Portia refuses, flatly, coldly, or at least firmly enough that Jordan walks away empty-handed. And honestly, from a character standpoint, Portia would have every reason to say no. Why should she ask Isaiah to back down when Curtis is still pushing forward with blame, denial, and strategy instead of remorse? Why should Isaiah absorb the moral burden of being the bigger person when he's the one who was attacked? That is where the story gains real emotional credibility. Mercy is meaningful only when it is freely offered. The second it becomes something the wronged person is pressured to provide for everyone else's comfort, it stops looking noble and starts looking coercive. That is why Isaiah interrupting Portia and Curtis later in the week could be such a powerful moment. If he steps into that conversation and effectively says, "You should be ashamed of yourselves for trying to force this through, Portia," then suddenly the moral center snaps into focus. The issue is no longer just legal strategy, it is respect, boundaries, ownership of harm. Who gets to define what justice looks like when the person who caused the damage is still acting like the main victim? And that's the theme General Hospital seems determined to explore this week from every angle: the psychological audacity of people who want grace before accountability. You can see it in Jordan's possible plea. You can see it in Brook Lynn'S attempt to hang on to her marriage without disclosing the whole truth. You can see it in the mystery around Drew and Brennan, where selective information may be buying somebody precious time. And you can absolutely see it in the Britt and Jason situation, which may be the most emotionally brutal story of the entire lineup. Because Britt is reportedly at rock bottom just as Jason returns to Port Charles. And if you know soap structure, that phrase alone should make you nervous. Rock bottom is where people expect rescue. It's where old loves suddenly matter again. It's where the fantasy of being saved becomes almost irresistible. But what if the person returning is no longer interested in playing savior? That is the possibility hanging over Britt, and it may be one of the most quietly devastating turns of the week. According to the predictions based on official spoilers, Lucas tells Britt she has a new lease on life and asks what she's going to do with it. That should be an encouraging question, but in context, it almost feels cruel because Britt's current circumstances are so bleak. She doesn't have Huntington's, and that is undeniably significant. It removes one nightmare from the board. But surviving one catastrophe does not automatically rebuild a life. She has no job, almost no money, no stable footing, no clear place to live, and the emotional whiplash of realizing that not dying is not the same as knowing how to live. That is exactly the kind of emotional terrain where a returning Jason Morgan becomes dangerous. Not dangerous in a violent sense necessarily, dangerous as a symbol, dangerous as hope. Because if Britt sees Jason walk back into town, part of her may instantly assume history will repeat itself. He'll step in, he'll steady things, he'll be the one person who knows how to read her pain without making her explain it, and maybe there was a version of Jason who would have done exactly that. But according to what has been teased publicly, Steve Burton has said Jason is changing things. That matters. It suggests that captivity, absence, whatever he has endured, may have altered his priorities in a fundamental way. And if Jason is coming back determined to step away from mob entanglements, reconnect with the Quartermaines, get closer to Dany, and make sharper decisions about the kind of life he wants, then Britt may no longer fit into the future he is trying to build. In fact, the cruel irony here is almost perfect soap mathematics. Now that Britt doesn't have Huntington's, Jason may feel less guilt about leaving her. The very thing that should improve her future may be the thing that frees him emotionally to walk away from it. That possibility is brutal, but it is also narratively rich. Because if Jason explains his actions on Tuesday, as the spoilers indicate, then the explanation could land like a second collapse for Britt. She may think she's getting an emotional lifeline and instead discover she's getting closure she never asked for. And closure, in soaps, is often just heartbreak with cleaner language. Of course, this is where speculation has to stay careful. There are rumors floating around about Jason's next chapter, including talk that he could wind up in the WSB, but rumors are not facts, and soaps are built on course corrections. There has also been chatter, according to fan discussion, that Steve Burton may not have loved the Jason-Britt pairing, and there have been whispers about chemistry tests with other actresses. But again, that kind of talk lives in the gray space unless the show itself confirms where it's heading. What matters for this week is the emotional shape of the setup. Jason is back, Britt is vulnerable, the old dynamic is available, and yet everything suggests the old dynamic may not survive contact with who Jason is now. That's why the kind look from a lost love summer tease is so interesting. It may point to Jason, yes. But even if it does, a kind look is not a commitment. A kind look is not a rescue plan. A kind look can be compassion from somebody who already knows he's about to disappoint you. And honestly, that may be more heartbreaking than outright rejection because it allows hope to live just long enough to be wounded. There's another reason this Britt story matters, and it goes beyond romance. It speaks to a larger truth about Port Charles that often gets overlooked. Characters survive traumas, kidnappings, diagnoses, betrayals, and near-death experiences all the time, but survival is not a personality. Once the crisis ends, the real challenge begins. Who are you when the emergency is over and your life is still in pieces? Britt appears to be standing in exactly that void, and Jason's return may force her to confront the most painful version of it. What if nobody is coming to rebuild you but you? Meanwhile, back in the Quartermaine orbit, Brook Lynn'S situation continues to loom because her story may actually be the narrative hinge connecting all the others. Think about it. If Chase forces her hand and the frame job starts unraveling, what happens to Willow's position? What happens to the board appointment Tracy is apparently raging about? What happens to every private resentment that has been temporarily disguised as policy, loyalty, or family business? The second false evidence or manipulated information gets challenged. It stops being one woman's lie and starts becoming a wider institutional embarrassment. And Tracy's rage is worth paying attention to because in soap storytelling, rage from an elder power broker is never just mood. It is political weather. If she's furious about a new hospital board appointment that may involve Willow, then this week's events may not only reshape marriages and romances, but also the balance of influence around General Hospital itself. That is the beautiful chaos of Port Charles. Personal betrayal never stays personal for long. It leaks into boardrooms, hospitals, courtrooms, and family alliances. Somebody's emotional panic today becomes somebody else's public crisis by Friday. That's also why Elizabeth's suspicions feel so combustible. If she tells Dante that something is off at Drew and Willow's place while Willow is already under pressure from the frame job narrative, then the character may find herself squeezed from multiple sides at once: legal, emotional, medical, reputational, and the audience starts to wonder whether Willow is a villain, a victim, or some unstable mix of both. Good soap writing loves that kind of ambiguity because it keeps viewers arguing in real time. Supporters will say she's drowning in circumstances and bad choices made around her. Critics will say chaos follows her too consistently to be random. Both sides will feel certain, and certainty in a soap audience usually means the show is doing something right. Then there's Carly and Valentin, whose story may seem almost warm compared to the other messes, but I wouldn't underestimate the danger there either. If they do exchange "I love you," the question is not simply whether they mean it. The question is whether love in Port Charles is ever allowed to remain uncomplicated once it is spoken out loud. Jack's warning is sitting there like a loaded device. Joss's interference is sitting there like a secondary fuse. Anna's presence ensures that Valentin's history is never completely off stage. So even a sincere declaration can feel like the start of a trial rather than the end of uncertainty. And that may be the broader emotional architecture of the week. Nobody gets a clean moment. Every confession arrives with a shadow. Every plea comes too late. Every possible reunion carries the risk of redefinition. Every act of truth-telling also threatens to expose a deeper lie. That is why these predictions, though rooted in official spoilers, feel bigger than a standard week-ahead rundown. They reveal a pattern. Port Charles is entering one of those stretches where the emotional debt is coming due all at once. Brook Lynn may discover that partial honesty is not enough. Jordan may discover that begging on behalf of someone unrepentant gets you nowhere. Portia may be forced to hold a hard line and live with the fallout. Curtis may finally learn that strategy cannot substitute for remorse. Elizabeth may become the accidental spark for a much bigger unraveling. Dante may get pulled into a mystery he can't ignore. Carly and Valentin may choose each other in a town that treats certainty like bait. Britt may look at Jason and realize the version of the future she counted on died while he was gone. And Jason himself may have to prove that change is real, not by what he says, but by who he walks away from. What is really going on here? That's the question underneath everything. Is Brook Lynn trying to save her marriage or trying to save herself from being fully seen? Is Jordan motivated by compassion, guilt, or fear of what prison will do to Curtis and everyone around him? Is Portia cold or simply refusing to let other people outsource their conscience onto her? Is Elizabeth overreacting or picking up on a lie everybody else is too distracted to notice? Is Valentin finally choosing a stable emotional future or stepping into another beautifully packaged disaster? Is Jason evolving or just rebranding his detachment as growth? And is Britt truly at rock bottom or standing at the brutal starting line of a life she has to build without leaning on old myths? That last question may actually be the one that lingers longest, because it touches the core of why soap audiences stay invested year after year. These stories are outrageous, yes. They are melodramatic, absolutely. But beneath the betrayals, the hospital politics, the love triangles, and the legal threats, there is always a more human fear hiding underneath. What if the story you've been telling yourself about who will save you, who will stay, who will forgive you, who will choose you, turns out not to be true? What do you do then? General Hospital seems ready to answer that the hard way this week, not with one giant explosion, but with a series of painful recognitions. The wife who learns truth has conditions. The friend who learns mercy cannot be demanded. The investigator who senses the official explanation doesn't add up. The lover who risks saying, "I love you," when the whole town expects it to fail. The woman who survives her diagnosis only to face the emptiness waiting on the other side. The man who returns changed enough to hurt people simply by refusing to be who they remember. And that is why this week feels so compelling. Not because one character may yell louder than another, or one couple may kiss while another falls apart. It feels compelling because the emotional stakes are rooted in something deeper than plot. They're rooted in identity, in accountability, in whether people can keep pretending they are protecting others when they are really protecting the version of themselves they want to believe in. Port Charles is full of people asking for understanding right now, but understanding is not absolution, and love is not immunity, and survival is not the same as peace. By the time this all plays out, somebody is likely to feel exposed, somebody will feel abandoned, somebody will feel vindicated, and somebody may realize far too late that the moment they thought they still had control was actually the moment control was already gone. And that, more than any single spoiler, is the reason viewers won't be able to look away. Because when ultimatums start landing, when begging starts failing, when suspicion starts spreading, and when the people who expect rescue instead get distance, Port Charles stops feeling like a place where drama happens and starts feeling like a place where truth hunts people down. And once that process starts, the only real mystery left is who gets broken by it first.